Hey gamers, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Godforge video. Today, I'm going to do a review of the beta. I've now put 4 or 5 days into the beta, a ton of time. As you can see, I'm level 34. I've been able to play and test a lot of the mechanics, a small amount of the characters, but I feel I have a good grasp on the game and I wanted to just give my overall impression of where the game sits so far in this beta build. We got a lot to discuss here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so let's get into it. All right, and welcome back. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So I came up with a fairly simple scale. It's just a scale of 1 to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can go 1.5, 2.5, things like that. But I wanted to keep it fairly simple, and I wanted to focus on areas of games that I felt were important and hopefully important to you. This is the first time I've put something kind of official together for myself and my channel. I fully expect this to evolve over time, but I'd be very thankful for any feedback that you have. Is it helpful? Is there anything else that you feel that I should discuss when we talk about reviews? So let's just talk about the topics. Number 1 is characters. In there, I take a look at visuals, and we'd look at progression mechanics. The next one is going to be combat. What does combat look like? What does it feel like? What are the mechanics? World immersion. This is something that's always been huge with me. Does the game draw me in? Do I want to come back to the game and experience the world in which these characters live? So that could be a little bit difficult, but I think I've got some talking points there that I think explain a little bit more of what I'm looking for with that. The next is the gameplay loop. Granted, when you first start a game, you're doing a lot with the game in the very beginning, but then you start getting into a rhythm. What does that gameplay look like? What are you doing every single time you log into the game? Remember, this is a beta, so we don't have the entire game. There's going to be game modes that are going to be added later that we don't have access to now, so I will expect this to continue to grow. And then the last one is just my overall rating, and then what do I hope to see between now and global? So first, let's go ahead and jump into the characters. All right, characters. Really quick, grading scale. 5 is amazing, 4 is great, 3 is good, 2 is and then 1 is just awful. So let's go ahead and jump into characters. When I talk about characters, I'm looking at visuals. I'm looking at what's available to progress that character. So first, let's talk about visuals. Now, I mentioned this in my very first stream, which was like day 2 of the beta. But when we take a look at the characters here, I think they're interesting. We've got some good-looking characters here. I think when you start taking a look at the detail, though, I think that's where we're missing. I mentioned in that stream that the characters look a little plastic to me. And what I mean is you've got all this shiny stuff happening. The beard on Guan Yu, I think he's a great starter character. I have not regretted it. As you can see, I've got him max ascended, level 60. But when we take a look at his beard, it just looks like a clump, right? There's no wispiness there or anything like that, if that makes any sense. Just some additional detail. When I swing him from left to right here, I would expect to see his sleeves there swing a little bit. Let's go ahead. Let's take a look at Onryo. Same thing with her. Just looks a little bit plastic. Swinging from side to side, I should see the sleeve swing. I should see this belt around her swing from left to right as well. So there should just be a little more flow to the characters, I think. And again, this is beta, so there's definitely some polish that's going to happen, I'm sure, between now and global. This is just what I'm seeing right now, right? You can see that on multiple characters. I can't pronounce the name. I'm just going to call her Lady Midday, but same with her. When we take a look at her hair, it just looks like a clump. It's not really kind of individually wavy. Again, polish is probably going to happen, but again, this is what we're seeing now. I think there's some very interesting characters in here. I think the designs are pretty cool as well. They just need, I would expect some polish to happen there. So that's characters. I won't dig too, I won't beleaguer that piece right there. Let's talk about customization. Let's talk about progression. How we continue to build our characters to make them stronger. I think they've built a really good progression system in here. I'm just going to start from the bottom and go up to the top, but we have awakenings. Awakenings, you use your duplicates. This is a good use of duplicates where you get additional stats and even additional effects to your abilities, which I think is pretty cool. It just gives, and it's only one. You only need one dupe each time. Now, as far as how often you get those dupes, obviously RNG and how quickly you're going to be able to rank them. For legendaries, it's going to be much harder just because the chance to get legendaries is so low in this game. But we've got Awakening. We've got an opportunity to use dupes there. Dupes come in character progression as well when you're starring and ranking heroes up. But I do like this. Ascending. This is good. Obviously, we've got our 6 gold stars. Then we turn them into purple stars. It's easy. Takes some time, but it's easy to farm the materials that you need in order to ascend them. So I think that's good. As you ascend them, you unlock passives and this attunement. So additional refinement there. Promoting, I think this is probably where I've got one of my biggest sticking points with this game. We'll talk about it just a little bit later. But typical starring up your heroes, right? All right, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at gear. We've got 6 pieces of gear. We have an attunement with that gear, which is cool once you get up to 4 ascended stars, which gives some additional stats here. So that's good. Now, attuning the 6, not too bad. It does take some gold. It does, and it's not super cheap. But when you add your weapon into it, it's just hellaciously expensive. But the weapon itself, I do like that. I like the fact that we have the weapon. We can level the weapon up. The imprint system, I think, is very cool as well. I don't know that I've seen it in other games. Maybe I have and I just don't remember, but I think it's a fairly unique mechanic that allows you to further define the role of each one of your characters, and I like it. I like it quite a bit. Plus, dupes for your weapons allow you to star them up. So there's just a number of opportunities here to define your hero and build them for what you need them to do in the team that you're building. Abilities here, typical abilities. I think with the imprints, I think it's cool because we've got our passives, but the imprints, being able to pull passives from rares or higher. Now, it's a little bit of a stripped down version of the real character's passive, but it essentially allows you 2 passives, which I think is pretty cool. And then obviously you can go ahead and level up your abilities. You can't level up the imprints, but you can level up your abilities, which I think is pretty cool. Typical stuff, right? I think the only challenge here with the ability upgrades is how we get our pages of knowledge, as well as the scrolls, the journals, and then the tomes as well. It's a bit cumbersome. Does take a little bit of time, but not too bad. So I think when we talk about character progression and what you have to shape your heroes, I think it's pretty cool. I think they've done a great job with that. So overall, I think when you take a look at visuals and progression, 3 being good, 4 being great, I'm going to give it a 3.5, just in the middle there. I think what brings it down a little bit is the visuals. If I was to grade visuals on its own, visuals would probably just be maybe a 3, maybe even a 2.5 right now. And I think the progression would be like a 4. But I did bring them together because it's characters overall and the visuals. Maybe I'll separate them later. You all tell me what you think. Should it be together or should I separate them? I don't want like a whole long list of stuff though, you know what I mean? All right, so that is characters 3.5. Next, I want to talk about combat. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, and before we get into an actual combat, one thing I do want to point out is this is a rock, paper, scissors mechanic combat system. What that means is we've got strength, we've got cunning right here with your green, we've got wisdom with blue, and then we've got eternals with the purple here. And as your affinity has a benefit over the other, you get a 30% chance to hit strong hit, which increases your damage by 30%. If you go up against a stronger affinity, then you've got a 30% chance for that weak hit, which reduces your damage by 30%. And the Eternals, 10% chance for that strong hit, which is going to give you that 30% damage increase, but you can never weak hit. So at least you have some consistent damage going out there. So I think the Eternals are important when you're building your teams. I think there's a certain amount of strategy that goes into play here when you're building your teams and putting the right affinities together for the battle that you're going into, right? So let's go ahead, let's jump into a combat situation here. Let's go here. All right. We pick our leader. It would be nice if they highlight this leader. I mean, it's not very intuitive, unless that's what they mean by this right here, being right here. I don't know. But I think it'd be cool to kind of just highlight the leader position, just to make it obvious. But we've got multi-battles, we've got regular battles, we've got stage info that we can take a look at so you can see what the boss is going to do. I'm going to go into battle. So it's a typical turn-based RPG combat system, right? You've got your rock, paper, scissors, you got your abilities. So I've got my basics here, I've got my core ability here, and then I've got my ultimates. So as enemies and allies take turns, you're building divinity. That's this blue bar that's going around all of our portraits over here on the left-hand side of the screen. Once that divinity maxes out, then you have an ultimate. Usual system, we see that everywhere. It's called different things. The cool thing about this system, though, is that you can use your ultimates out of turn. I think that is cool. I've seen that in a few games, not too many, but I think it's a cool system because, again, it allows you to strategize. Maybe save certain ultimates for the boss once you get there, depending on when you get your ultimate. Maybe you use your ultimate in round 1 and then you save it for round 3. So there's some strategizing there. When we have the abilities and the animations, I think they're pretty typical. I do like the fact that allies and enemies, once they're taken out, they're just laying on the ground there. They're just laying there until you get to that next wave. I think animations, again, typical animations, nothing really over the top. When you take a look at synergies, there are some synergies. There's some synergies with specific characters in the game. There's some synergies when, let's say, you just launch freeze, and then you get some characters get additional damage on frozen targets, things like that. One thing I don't see in here is the affinity system. If you've got like 3 strength and 2 cunning, in some games, in a fair amount of games, I've seen where you get benefits for having a few or all of your team being of a single affinity. So I think there's some strategy that could happen there as well. But there's really no faction benefits that I really see in this. So faction or affinity or whatever we want to call them. But again, typical turn-based RPG system. You attack, your opponent attacks. You've got your yellow bar here, which allows you to go first. So there's strategy there. You can always take a look, see who's going to go next. On the enemy side, take them out first and start their turn meter. There we go. Their turn meter all over again. Just allows you to get some additional attacks in if you're able to take them out. Kind of strategize there. So typical system. I think with this, that's really all I have to call out for combat. So I think I don't think it's great because it's just typical of what we've seen in these types of games. So I think it's good. So I'm going to give combat a 3. Next, we're going to talk about world immersion. That I probably have quite a bit more to talk about and really explain what I mean by that. So let's take a look at that. All right, world immersion. What I mean by that, like I was talking about earlier, is does the game draw me in? Does the game make me want to log back into the game so that I can experience the world that these characters live in, that the developers have built for us? A few things go into that. Number one, the backdrops, right? When you're in combat in the different realms, the backdrops are different depending on the realm that you're in. When you go into your heroes here, you've got different backgrounds as well. So it gives you a sense of the environment that these characters live in, right? That's some immersion right there. It gives you some inclination about their personality, things like that. So I think that's good. I think what draws me in even more is being able to play the game. Now, what I mean by that is as you can see, I'm level 34. I've put a ton of time in this game over the last 4 or 5 days, but I can't say that I necessarily played it, right? So in the beginning of the game, you're running through the game, you're running through the campaigns, you're getting caught up. But once you get to the part of the game that every game will get to eventually, into the farming stages, where you're farming the materials that you need to rank up your heroes, strengthen your teams, build multiple teams. Once you get into that farming aspect, that's where I feel it's more of just running a program. So what I mean is, right, I'm going in there and I'm setting up auto battles. I have set up hundreds of auto battles. I have set up auto battles while I go to bed at night, And all I do is set those up and I put my phone aside and the phone runs a program. I'm not playing it. I'm not interacting with it. I'm setting my phone aside. I'm going to do chores. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to be playing another game. Things like that disconnect me from the game. It's a mechanic that I've never really been a huge fan of. Similar to the food mechanic, I've never been a huge fan of that just because you just get into a loop of just cannibalizing your roster over and over and over and over, and you get into this just repetitive loop that tends to get a little bit boring. And again, it disengages me. I'm not going out and farming any specific materials to rank my heroes up. What I'm doing is I'm going and I'm farming campaigns so I can get my experience and my gold and Aether Stones so that I can go summon summon heroes from the Mortal Aether Stone just to get food. I'm just summoning for food at that point. So that's the part that really disengages me from the game and doesn't bring me in. Yes, we've got a good story as well. I didn't mention that. We've got a good story. It's not a verbose story. We're not watching a 5-minute cutscene or anything like that, which is great. I like the art direction of it. I like the little bite-sized chunks of story that we get as we progress through the story. If you don't like the story, you can go ahead and skip it. I like that. It would be nice if there's like a theater or something like that that you can go to. And when you have time, you can go ahead and just watch all the different cutscenes. I think that'd be cool. But you have that. But the amount of time that you're actually not playing and you're setting your phone aside to run a program, that is why for World Immersion, I rank it so low. So I'm giving it a 2 because it's I don't think it's absolutely awful. I think it's unfair to say that. But it is So yeah, it just doesn't really draw me in. So between now and global, maybe they have some things in the works. We know not all the game modes are available. We know that Arena and Tower are coming in the next beta. We know that Pantheons are coming in the next beta. This is just my opinion on where beta stands right now. There's a lot of polish and a lot of time between now and global. So we'll see what happens, and then we'll do kind of an early access review. We'll do a global launch review, and we'll just kind of take a look and see how this game progresses. So those are my thoughts on World Immersion. Very curious on your thoughts. Let's go ahead. Final thing. Let's talk about the gameplay loop. So the gameplay loop, the things that we're doing in the game on a regular basis, right? We've got our calendars that we're going to be collecting from on a daily basis. We have missions that are going to allow us to get Morrigan. Once we're able to do that, I don't think we're going to be able to do that in the beta. You've got quests to run for dailies, weeklies, and monthlies that you're constantly working towards. Other than that, you're pushing campaign, you're pushing dungeons so you can get the materials and the resources you need to build up your team and your heroes. Same thing we do in every other game. I think when it comes to the gameplay loop right now, it suffers just because there's not as much to do in the game. We know that more game modes are going to be coming, so once that happens, we're going to see that gameplay loop take a little bit longer. But I think when we talk about the gameplay loop, it suffers from the same issue as World Immersion does, is we are going in there, we're setting up so many auto battles, we're putting our phone off to the side, and then we're going off and we're doing other things. That is essentially our loop once you get to a certain point in the game. You're just letting it run a program. It'd be nice, and I meant to mention this in the World Immersion piece, but if we had background farming or skip tickets, and honestly, I would prefer background farming over skip tickets. Because what I could do then is I can go into dungeons, I can say, hey, I'm going to go into here, I'm going to go ahead and farm stage 6 20 or 30 times, put that into background farming, and then I can go out here, and then I can go ahead and I can go into campaign, or I can go into PvP or tower when those hit, or I can do my Pantheon boss, or whatever that might look like, or the quests that I have for being into Pantheon, things like that. Maybe it's Alliance versus Alliance stuff that's coming to the game eventually. I can go ahead and do all that other stuff while I'm farming, doing that monotonous chore to get all those different materials and everything that I need to strengthen my heroes, to strengthen my team, so I can continue to push content in the game. So when it comes to the gameplay loop, it's very underwhelming right now. Again, I've stressed this through the entire review. In the state that it's currently in, I expect polish, and I expect quite a bit to happen between now and global launch, but that's where the beta is right now. So that is gameplay loop. So I'm going to give, my rating on that is a 2. It's kind of because it just, you get to that repetitive state so quickly. We're only 4 days in, or actually I was at that point on day 3, essentially. Some people were probably at that point on day 2. So I'm going to give it a 2. So out of my ratings of a 3.5 on characters for visuals and progression, a 3 on combat for the mechanics, a 2 for world immersion, being able to get sucked into the world that you're playing, and a 2 for the gameplay loop. That puts the beta for me at like a 2.6 overall. And I think, I don't know, I think that's fair. You can even bump that up to a 3. I think it's good. I think there's some things that I really look forward to seeing. Here's some things now that I really hope to see between now and global launch. Let's talk about that. So throughout the review, I've kind of given some ideas and some thoughts around how I'd like to see those different categories improve. But what I would like to see, hopefully by the time we get global launch, is I would like to see some sort of roguelike game mode. In some instances, those are labyrinths. That's where you're going from battle to battle to battle. You have persistent health. You're selecting different buffs. Maybe even along the way, you're collecting different heroes along the way to get to the end. You do that a certain number of times to go ahead and clear that. I think people are pretty familiar with that mechanic. So I would hope that we would get some sort of roguelike game mode in the game. I think that would be pretty helpful. I've already talked about the skip tickets or the background farming. One of those, preferably, in my opinion, the background farming, just because I think it's more productive, in my opinion. You have something going on in the background while you're doing some other stuff. So that would be nice to see. I would also like to see some sort of dispatch kind of mechanic, right? That's where you're setting up your heroes to go on journeys, adventures, or whatever it might be. They're out for a certain period of time and they come back with resources. Some of the resources that are super difficult in this game to get are your pages of knowledge so that you can upgrade your abilities. That takes tons and tons of dungeon farming, hoping to come across a rift so that you can get those pages. It also takes going through certain missions to allow you to collect those as rewards, or as you level up, you sometimes get an option for knowledge, which is going to give you that that resource so that you can upgrade your abilities. So some of those more rare and more difficult to obtain resources would be cool to get in a dispatch type mode. I'm going to stop it with those 3. Those are kind of my top 3 right now. Very curious on your thoughts. What do you think of the beta right now? What are some things that you would like to see happen in the game between now and global launch? Again, overall, my view is a 2.6. You can round up to a 3 if you want. That being said, I am enjoying my time in the game, and I'm excited to see how this game continues to develop between now and global launch. We know we have quite a bit coming. Very curious on your thoughts. What do you think about the beta right now? What do you hope to see between now and global launch? Very curious to hear from you. All right, everybody, as always, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch the video. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts and questions in the comment section below. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.